Hi, and welcome to CryptoBiography. I'm your host, Brandon Starr. This is episode 429 of CryptoBiography, and it's part 3 of The Spotter. And here we go. Was this person someone who had heard of the exercise he was putting together and was hoping to take advantage of the mostly harmless guards to break into the house? One of the difficulties of his heat vision was that it was good at providing him with the outlines of things, not so great at giving details beyond that. He could often see details when close up, like when he was checking out someone's heat map on their face, but at a distance, he could mostly make out general shapes and outlines. This person in the tree, he thought, was probably looking at him, but it was difficult to tell. He suspected they were wearing night vision goggles. If that was so, then they were probably also wearing a hood and mask. That would make seeing any details as difficult for him as possible. He'd gone part way around a tree already and was peering around the tree. He didn't know the intent of this person, and they may be looking to shoot him. He didn't see a gun, but that might not mean much. Sometimes guns at night, until they'd been fired, were quite tricky to spot by heat. Also, if a gun was being held behind the tree trunk or a smaller gun was still in a holster, it might not be visible anyway. He could draw a weapon, dangerous if the person was armed and looking to defend themselves, or call in help, or he could move towards the house in a way that he was planning on anyway. Drawing a weapon on someone when he didn't even know why they were there was not to be countenanced, and he didn't want to call in help, in case this was just a guard being silly about his training game, trying to make him look like a fool. Moving towards the house both made him win the game, proving there was still a break in the security that he had found, and got him away from this person behind him. If the person came down to the ground and follow him, if the person came down to the ground and followed him, he would reevaluate the situation. He put the tree he was by between him and the figure in the far tree and went in the opposite direction so he would not be visible to them. He saw another tree nearly on this new line, which would give him further cover once he was around it. He moved slowly, not wanting to lose the game or accidentally put himself back in view of the person in the trees. He kept his head on a swivel and avoided putting them in line of sight again. I'm going to change that right there. He kept his head on a swivel and avoided putting him in line of sight again. Soon he was far enough away that the trees and brush were blocking any possible view. He had not seen the person make any sort of move and was pretty sure they were still in the trees. He made it back to the house and proudly snuck inside, where he made his way to the guard room and declared his win. But his feeling of victory was short-lived. He asked about the person hiding in the trees on the grounds, and no one knew what he was talking about. It wasn't a guard then. Some unknown person was on the grounds. He had several of them reload their weapons with live ammunition and follow him. They were wearing night vision goggles. He, of course, was not. They had been told about his excellent night vision. When they got close, with him leading the way, he had them stop while he moved further forward. He did not see the person in the trees. He could tell he was not making a mistake. There was still a slightly warm patch on the branches. But there was also a series of warm footprints leading away from the house. He called the cam guards and let them know what part of the grounds the person was likely to be on, but it was apparently too late. They never spotted whoever it was on their cameras. Guy looked at the trees in the morning. There were no real clues as to who had been in that tree, although there were some scratches in the bark. This was likely due to some metal climbing gear on the person's boots or gloves. It was a puzzle, and one that bothered him. But he did the best he could, and tried to stop any holes that this person used to get on the property without him or the guard team knowing. He even ran a couple more games to see if anyone showed up. But though he was very watchful, he saw no one. He spent more time and energy on the project than he had planned, but in the end he was convinced he had made the security as tight as possible. He shook his client's hand and went home, sending a bill. 3 days later, he was contacted. It was an email from an anonymous account. "You did a good job at the Stapleton place. You saw me, and now I'd like to introduce myself. If you'd like, meet me at the hot dog stand outside the Hall of Justice on Temple Street, Wednesday at noon. I'll come up to you wearing a gray hat. It was a very public place. Guy carefully scoped it out and saw no danger. He decided to meet whoever this was and make a decision from there. And that's the end of the episode for this week. If you have any comments or questions about this episode or previous episodes, cryptobiography@gmail.com or hit us up on Facebook or Blue Sky. And thanks for listening. Words and music, copyright 2025, Brandon Starr, all rights reserved. Characters and events are fictional, fictionalized, or satirical.